Today we're going to be talking about the Chemwatch heat maps. It's part of our innovation series, and I want to thank you for attending. If you have any questions or comments, please use the chat box, and then we'll review those questions as we get toward the end. We do have some extra staff with us today. We have Tom Hassey, Business Development Manager, will be doing much of the presentation with me. I'm Paul Benbow, Business Development Manager. Also with us today, we have Nora Ballant and Augusta Brentley, and coming in from our Australia office is Claude Neary, and Claude is going to come in to be a recording because it's 2 in the morning in Australia. So in this webinar, we're going to explore the current points that drive this innovation of heat maps. We're going to introduce the topic, talk about future developments, and how to get on board. Heat maps is an exciting feature for Chemwatch. We feel it leverages our ability with all of our wonderful rich data and our powerful system that we have that can bring this together as a feature. So just a quick overview of Chemwatch. We are a successful company with over 30 years of service in the chemical industry. We are international. We have about 300 staff across the globe, and we have 21 offices around the world. We currently author SDSs as part of our regular business, and so we have many clients that do that, and we author about 5,000 a month. And we have thousands of clients globally, hospitals, government, and so some of the market first, we were one of the first people to move to the cloud. So we saw the cloud as being the best way to manage your chemicals. We started off with CDs and sending those out back in the dark ages, microfiche before that, if anybody remembers that. We were also an early adopter of mobile technology, both Android and iOS. We are a market leader in using web crawler technology to actually find SDSs. Not the subject of this webinar, but another webinar will talk about our ability to do that. And we also have inventory management. We're the first to incorporate the SDS with a barcode, so you can actually use the barcode and the SDS in conjunction. And one feature we're working on, real excited about, was we'll be able to take a smartphone, scan a UPC barcode on any product, and then have the SDS appear on the phone. And that's in development. We're excited to see that probably in first quarter. We do have the largest SDS in the world, SDS database in the world, over 60 million SDSs. We do have a regulatory database that's integrated into our system, a product we call Gallerina. We are the first to implement standardized risk assessments. We do have our RFID technology that we're bringing to market that works with our scan-in, scan-out barcode system. And the future is, very bright for Chemwatch. So I guess, one market need about heat maps is a lot of times people are very visual. They don't understand a spreadsheet full of data. So they are always nice to have a floor plan where they can actually see the colors. And then how we get to there is the topic of this webinar. So on-site OHS teams need to identify hotspots because of disasters or fire, emergency, things like that. So sites can have lots of rooms. Rooms can have different needs, shelves, cabinets, sprinklers, fire restrictions, firewalls, fire ratings of walls. All these things come into play when you're talking about heat maps, because you need to know, how big is the room, how much stuff is there. And really to understand that, you have to understand what the chemicals are, and that's where Chemwatch comes in. So our system helps you identify and categorize and give the attributes of that space into the Chemwatch system. And then we know how much and what the chemicals are you have in that space. And then we take that information together and produce the heat maps. And you'll see how that, kind of works as we go through the demo. But we are uniquely qualified to deliver this feature because, like I said, we have the platform and the data. So what is heat mapping? So Tom, I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Thank you, Paul, and good morning, everyone. Thanks again for joining, and apologize for the internet issues. We've been having some battles with GoToWebinar. It seems to have a new release, and we've not found a common ground in terms of getting it to behave. So, but before I get started, I just wanted to sort of give you the 50,000-foot view of heat mapping. And really, it's actually an extension of the digital engineering activities in the late 90s, early 2000s, where 2D models of floor plans and tools and robots were commonly used for design and reviews, and they moved into the 3D world. And the reason is 3D models are intuitive to all levels of the enterprise. And what you're going to see here is the EHS world has now embraced these tools and can give its users an ability to model in a 3D fashion and in a dynamic fashion as to inventory amounts in certain locations and how those move around and how they might behave over time in terms of exposures. So to give you, let's say, a quick taste of this, we'd like to run a quick 2-minute promo that we have been using to introduce the product to the market. Thanks, Paul. Okay, so you saw, quite frankly, a 50,000-foot view of how this thing works, heat mapping works, excuse me. And in a nutshell, what it is with our tools, our current tools we've had, is when you create a folder of chemicals by basically dragging SDSs into them, you can then state the inventory that will be associated with that SDS, and ergo the classification of that substance. Well, we use that data and then map it onto an existing 3D model. So basically, we're using metadata techniques to do that. So we're going to talk about 4 levels of detail that you can use with the tool. So you have a global view. You see everything on a map, lack of a better term, your sites globally. And then 3D models. These are built to scale of your site, so we use public domain data or data you would give us. And then as you saw, these immersive internal views of buildings, rooms, and labs. And then the floor plans, these 2 or 3D floor plans for detailed info on internal structures. And the last two I'd like to talk briefly about in terms of a use case. And as you saw those fly-throughs through storage areas, one thing I'd like you to think about is how that can be used for other level parts of the enterprise, specifically emergency response. So you can, by location of these chemicals, understand, do you have pinch points, narrow hallways, places that are inaccessible, let's say for fire or emergency personnel. So it brings into play, so to speak, many other pieces of data from the enterprise that affect the safeties of your workers. So we talk about the global view. Obviously, it depends on the size and nature of your sites, but again, with one click, you can see from a global point of view, where do you have your stuff, so to speak, and where is the nasty stuff? Because we're doing this using color bands, and you can access info directly at site level. So one of the things you can do with the tools we saw on the fly-through is now you can understand your hazardous materials in relation to proximity to sensitive areas, hospitals, schools, as examples. So we talked about the 3D site models, the value there. So we create a 3D model of your site with real dimensions. So we're taking, a lot of times we'll take CAD models that our users will provide us, or worst case is we could do a Google View snapshot and start there, but we would still need user intervention to tell us specific rooms within that 2D outline of the building. So the models will show buildings as separate entities within the context of a site. So as you move chemicals around different buildings within different buildings at a site, the hazard rating will move with it. So as we saw, the fly-through navigation is available, and that's, to me, critical when you're doing, let's say, design reviews, or from a facilities management point of view, or space management point of view. The data is linked from your folders to the buildings and floor. So as you update your folders, the materials will move around, lack of a better term, in terms of hazard severity and or its actual location. So what we're doing is we're actually layering metadata directly over the building. 3D images in terms of its value. Now you can be created from smartphones or fisheye cameras. So once we grab the image, or we can use Google Street View in terms of navigation, the interior of your buildings. So it'll show, as you saw earlier with the promo, you can transition from one room to another in the hazards. So again, the data is linked from your folders to the actual physical entity, the cupboard, the shelf, the bench. And again, what we're doing here is we're using metadata layering over in this case, the image. So using 2 or 3D floor plans, now you can create an internal view of your building and allow the inclusion of regulated cabinets. This is where you can add sprinklers, fire-rated walls, let's say location of fire hosing, let's say extinguishers, that type of thing. And these can simply be images of blueprints or we prefer the actual 2D plans. We'll do a name drop. The actual AutoCAD file as an example would be great. So again, we're linking data from your folders to more of a granular level now, that is to the rooms and specific entities within that room. And again, the technique is layering metadata or overlaying it over the actual floor plan. So there's 4 different ways that this, let's say, provides value to an organization. So this metadata, what exactly are we talking about here? Well, what we do is we define hotspots using the 5 color bands. Red is the worst, so to speak, and green is okay. So this gives you a view of your inventory, but also the risk assessments associated with that inventory. Excuse me. So we can use any of the folders in terms of context of mapping the map location. And as I mentioned earlier, this now gives you an ability from an emergency response point of view to look at different scenarios. If there's a fire, a spill, possibly a plume, you can now then look at these different scenarios and plan accordingly as to how you want the emergency personnel to respond. And again, because we're integrating the model or overlaying it with data from the folder level, our folders are very dynamic. They have many, let's say, functions. One of them is the way we structure the folder in terms of you choosing the type of folder. It's going to be storage or cabinet. When you do create a folder, this helps us build these. We use, our IFC rules that we've created, and we're the only vendor that has this tool right now from an IFC point of view. That is to structure your folders that basically incorporate the IFC rules, so when you do your reporting, the folders are already structured to complement the reporting. What does all that mean? Well, if something is 100% allowable at the first floor and 80 at the second and 70 at the third, the folder structure that you create, we have rules in there that force you to define, hey, is that going to be on the second floor? And if it is, you can't put 100% in there. So it's ability to indicate storage location and quantities for licensing and reporting. We just mentioned the reporting tool. It also will show you incompatibilities in that storage area. It will also define separation distances required for via incompatibility. So for instance, I know one of the favorites I see a lot is like a WD-40 at the bulk level and solvents. So we're going to tell you, well, you need to be at least 15 feet apart with those substances. And it also shows the placarding requirements in terms of the hazard. Excuse me. So the future, well, it's here. And what I mean by that is we've been working on this product for a few months now, and I'd like to show a video of our Chief Regulatory Officer, Claude Neary, running a product demo of our heat mapping tool. Thank you, Claude, even though you're asleep. So what we'd like to talk about now is some of the attributes of this heat mapping tool that we're working on as we speak. One of them is augmented reality. That is to use a stored image and map it to an existing facility. So right now our heat map, it acts like virtual reality. So the intention is to eventually allow 3D models to be used by mobile devices. So that 3D, that spatial information can be used by mobile devices in terms of looking at the data in its original location. So the idea will be to overlay, again, as we do with our other techniques, or layer metadata to the mobile device screen. So then you can look at different information warnings depending on the situation. So this would be a great tool for emergency response, folks. Plume or spill modeling. So this will rely heavily on the physical features of the site, obviously. In other words, is the room closed? Is it open? Obviously the size. And what 3D mapping will allow you to do is apply algorithms to spills in gas plumes. For instance, evaporation rates might be one of them, or something to do with flammability. So you can look at the outcomes based on various scenarios. And this is what I was mentioning earlier. If you have basically a location, a facility where the material is located, and you have very little leeway, so to speak. In other words, the hallway is narrow, the entrance to the room is near a stairway, and there's just things you can't get around. This will allow you to understand, based on different scenarios, what the outcomes might be, and it'll allow you to understand there may be some outcomes that are just unacceptable, and you're going to have to find a different location. This also can be used in the event of a real accident, using the current conditions, and just see, quite frankly, what might happen or what's going to happen if you don't put this out quickly or contain that plume. And I'm going to turn it over to Paul now. He's going to give you some tips on how you can get started with us.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tom. I think what we're moving toward is actually taking your floor plans from your AutoCAD files or whatever facilities management system you have, and actually putting those into the system, and then creating 2D floor plans or 360-degree images, and that will let us get to the augmented reality kind of stuff. That's really the goal in all this is to make it very easy for a user to look at information via floor plan, or maybe walking around with their phone, they can see this kind of thing quickly. And geotagging, 360 models, 3D models, 360 images, all this stuff is a lot of techno hype, but I think at the end of the day, it just makes it simpler for the average person to understand the risks that are involved with where you're storing your chemicals. So Chemwatch is kind of uniquely positioned to deliver this, and I think in the shortcoming, in the few months, we're actually going to see a lot of this technology be delivered in our product. So question and answer period. Tom, do you see any questions that have been on the chat?
Hey everyone, I was busy writing them down. Yeah, I got actually a couple very good ones. So the first question is, have we considered radiation mapping? Well, yes, we have actually. And the person who needs to speak on this, that's at the granular level, is our sleeping Chief Regulatory Officer in Australia, Claude Neary. But I do have, we've picked his brain on a few of these future entities, this being one of them, so I can add some info here, but all questions will be answered in writing as a email that we'll send out to you here in the next few days. So yes, we've considered radiation mapping. It's actually, we're looking at doing it as part of the plume modeling that I talked about earlier. So currently, using our scan in, scan out technology, our barcode-based asset management system, along with our inventory management capabilities, we currently can track activity rates. So like a manufacturing date or manufactured date, and also the half-life of the materials. So we can do some of that now, but we are going to build it into the Plume model.
Great. Any other questions, Tom?
Yes, I'm writing one down right now. Bear with me. Another real good one. Have you looked at exposure levels in each area? And well, it depends on, quite frankly, how you're calculating that. In other words, are you using mathematics around evaporation rates and then seeing what exposure levels will occur? So we're looking at doing this in the future, and it'll be basically like you saw earlier, almost like a simulation, about what might happen. And you'll have the ability, for instance, because you can control at the inventory level, things like, is this a closed area or not? So yes, it is in the future, and it will be related to plume modeling as well.
Okay, great. Any other questions, Tom?
Every time you ask, Paul, another one comes through. So here,
Well, that's how it's supposed to work.
Yes, and here's a good one. Will there be easy integration with heat mapping with existing space management systems or facilities management systems? And well, I can't get in all detail because it's confidential, but the answer is yes. We're actually talking to a few of those software vendors as we speak. And it's just one of these things, I think, just we'll keep you posted on it, but best we'll actually announce it through our website. So certainly keep an eye on it through there. But we'll announce that certainly as part of our family of email blasts we like to do around either new products or new capabilities. And certainly partnering up with such a vendor on optimizing space requirements based on your needs is a marriage that affects our users.
Yeah, and I think when we introduced our IFC module last year, we learned that what we do is we take our folders and we give our folders properties, and then the folder understands the fire rating of that room, the size of the room, and all those characteristics. And so we came up with that module, and I think we looked at it and took it one step farther and said, really, it's not that much more to go here. We do a heat map. And so because we have these folder properties, we can take that attribute data from some of the facilities management packages that are out there, commercially available. We can gather that information from them, put it in our system, and then give them back that information they would need to create the heat maps, because we have the chemical data and we understand, all that entails and the quantities. So we're uniquely positioned to do that. And because our underpinnings with our folder technology having the properties that we do, I think you're going to actually see that feature sooner than later. So I think that's what everybody's really after. Okay. Anything else, Tom?
Yeah, I have another one here. Is the product paid for via the subscription, or is it let's say a separate software purchase? This is part of the subscription. This will be incorporated as part of our product family for SDS and inventory management, what we call Gold FFX and Chemwatch. And the difference of those two are, one allows you, let's say, a standard offering to have approvals workflow module, and what we call our chemical tagging module, which is basically a way of creating customized filters where you can track properties of interest against your substances, like how many of your materials are affected by the Prop 65 carcinogen regulation, or does any of your materials contain, let's say, a forbidden material, a conflict mineral as an example. So our SDS and inventory management products, Gold FFX and Chemwatch, will have this capability built into it. And it'll basically be a right-click function when you're looking at the inventory in your folders.
That's a great question. So, anything else, Tom, or is that?
No, that's it, Paul. I expect another one when you start talking there again, but that didn't happen. So, yeah, we got 4 good ones, and we'll wait a minute or so if folks have any others, or if you have a question on top of an answer, so to speak, that was given, feel free to fire away. But again, Paul and I will capture all these, your questions obviously with our answers, and then send them out as a Word document to one and all.
Yeah, and we'll send a copy of the recording and our slide deck and everything out as well when you get our email. I do want to talk about our next webinar, Tuesday, January 21st. We're going to talk about GHS compliant SDS authoring, and I also wanted to add labeling. So label creation is a hot topic, and how that can be made easy with Chemwatch. So we're going to just kind of delve back into just more of a kind of a bread and butter product that we have that is capable of very easily creating an SDS or a compliant label, maybe from a mixture, and how this is very easily done in our system. So join us Tuesday, January 21st, and we're going to talk about that. Anything else, Mr. Tom?
Feel free to reach out to us, everyone, regarding a product demo. This is not vaporware. It exists, and we be happy to show you.
Okay, I see there's one more question came in. Do you see that one? Maybe I'm hallucinating. Anyway.
So the question came in, this functionality will require an effort to create your site model. Any estimate on cost level of effort to set this up? Well, actually right now we're doing it for free. So the early adopters, as they say, step on up, we'll do that for free. So we'll access your CAD model. Certainly the key is your data. In other words, if you can get us AutoCAD files or whatever you're using for the layouts for your facilities, that's what we need. Because in that we'll call it Autodesk file, if you want to call it that, are layers where we can understand wall heights and different attributes inside of that building. So we need, the richer the data set, the less effort it's going to take to get you up and running. But right now we're doing it for free.
It's hard to argue with free. Well, that sounds great. Well, please, reach out to Tom or myself if you have any questions, and we're happy to provide a demo or give you a trial copy of our software, set you up however you'd like. We do look forward to working with everybody. And I guess that's going to take care of our webinar. Anything final before I close the door there, Mr. Tom?
No, Paul, thanks everyone for your time, and apologize for the internet issue there to start with, but you always know when that happens, this is a live webinar, not recorded.
It's so crazy, like literally 5 minutes before the thing, I lost my internet and had to grab my laptop. So anyway, sorry about that. But yeah, without further ado, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed our presentation.